base is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here, November 13th. It's a Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show during an international break, so that pretty much opens the door up to anything. Whatever your deep soccer thoughts are, bring them to us, and we will discuss them here on the show today. We've got a few to get into as well. You got teams who are planning for the 2019 season. You've got teams who are stealing front office members from other teams. All kinds of good stuff. We'll get into all that. We'll talk about FC Cincinnati and their new branding for Major League Soccer that was announced yesterday. And we'll talk about the Western Conference playoffs, which we didn't really spend much time on yesterday. We were a little busy with Atlanta and New York City and Atlanta and the Red Bulls and, the Eastern Conference side of it. We'll talk Western Conference today as well. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you this morning. And let's start with this, John. New England. It's an interesting thing here about the Revolution. So they're bringing 19 guys back from what was a disappointing season.
Mm-hmm.
The tune a month ago when they beat Orlando was Brad Friedel said there would be quite a few changes in the off-season. 19 guys back is not quite a few changes. They do have things to work with, though. They locked down Christian Penilla and Luis Caicedo, two of their best players that were on loan this year. They're coming back. They've got 3 open international slots. They've got 3 designated player slots because Claude Dielna has finally been asked to go somewhere else. They have some guys they might sign to homegrown deals, a couple pretty promising prospects, and they've got 2 first-round picks in the Super Draft. How different, though, can New England be in 2019?
Not much. I don't really have a whole lot of optimism toward it.
3 designated player slots. That's 3 big-time potential players.
Yeah, but right now that's just like pieces of paper you have in your hand, and you just sit there and it's like, okay, I have this that I can play with. It's like having a gift card to Circuit City. What are you going to buy with that gift card?
Hey, I like Circuit City.
I did too. I'm just saying that you have this gift card to Circuit City. You have you've got a Fandango gift card. What movie are you going to see? You've got a Circuit City gift card. Are you going to buy the Walkman, the Watchman, or are you going to buy this new thing called an MP3 player or the iPod?
You were going down a road, and I hoped you were going to take a left, and you took a right.
Yeah.
The Circuit City gift card's actually great because it doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly.
So,
and that's why I went backwards and was referring to all the old stuff.
No, what I'm saying is New England has 3 designated player slots open. Their last designated player was Claude Dielna. Not a big-time designated player slot. Not a big-time player. Couldn't even get off the bench after July this season, after starting the year as the captain. There's no guarantee they're actually going to use those slots.
Correct.
That's the question. Okay. You were kind of going around and around. I didn't know where you were going there. Sorry.
It's like, what are you going to do with that gift card? That's my whole point. And you've got a gift card.
I don't know if
to
Robert
a place
Kraft
that
even
no
knows what the
exists.
gift card is. That's the problem.
He has the platinum or the black Amex or whatever. But it's what you do with that credit limit. If you're Robert Kraft, you're just going to whip out the platinum and sit there and go, okay, let's get this dude, or are you going to actually take that platinum and actually get something done with it? I'm not optimistic. Until further notice, I see 19 guys back. I see a lot of open slots, both international and DP. And I'm like, I mean, you're Missouri to me right now. Just show me. And they haven't shown me much. So I don't really have a whole lot of optimism.
So looking at the Eastern Conference, Jarrett, you've got Atlanta, Red Bulls, which have been a step above everybody else. You've got New York City, who was there for a while, faded, don't know what they're going to be next year. You've got a Philadelphia team that's young. You've got a Columbus team that will be going through some changes because Berhalter's probably gone. Chicago would probably be aggressive coming into this season. Probably. I don't know.
Yeah, see, you're like,
DC, should be much better over a full season at Audi Field. Can
How do we
New
define
England
aggressive
even,
for?
Well, they should be. No, we're not going to have to define it because this is going to require Nelson Rodriguez doing something and actually getting a deal done. Which
This is going to
he's
require
talked
them
about how
making the
close
right
he's been.
decisions.
Well, it's twofold for Chicago. I mean, it's not even just that. It's twofold because Nelson Rodriguez has talked about it consistently about, well, we've been really close on deals. We've been really close. Well, you haven't gotten any. And then some of the guys that you were supposedly chasing were not necessarily the best decisions either. So that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother Tuesday Thoughts. You would expect them to do something in the offseason. I don't think Chicago comes back with the same roster and same lineup. DC should be better. Philadelphia, you would expect, would be better with more experience. I mean, I don't think Orlando can get any worse. Cincinnati's going to come in and not exactly be bad, I think, to start, even if they bring 9-10 guys from USL with them. Can New England compete for a playoff spot next year? Because I'm not so sure they can.
I don't know. I mean, because you're going to have going through all the teams. I mean, it's possible. Depends on what the up or downs of teams in the area do, and I think Montreal's out here ready to. I think Montreal's out here ready to start cracking skulls.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's the other one I was trying to think of that, should be improved from this season.
Orlando should be improved because, my God, I don't know that it can get worse.
There's that.
Go back to that quote.
Yeah. There's a lot of questions.
They'll
for
be better.
2019.
Orlando will be better than last season. I'm not saying they're winning MLS Cup, but they'll be better than last season because
they won't give up the most goals in history.
No, they won't. I mean, O'Connor will have them at least something coherent. It doesn't mean they're going to make the playoffs. It doesn't mean they're going to be good, but I don't expect them to get worse.
Assuming he's the manager, yeah.
He's got to be. Nobody else is taking that job. Nobody else is walking into that.
I think you're right, but we shall see. I don't know otherwise. Like, there's a lot of questions for the Eastern teams, especially with Columbus, who's kind of been that stalwart for the last 2 years that we can pencil in to a spot. Mm-hmm. What shape are they going to be in? What shape is New York City going to be in with Domi Tarrant and the mess that they were there at the end?
Mm-hmm. I think New York City is a playoff team next year. I just don't know if they're a top half playoff team. Columbus, we've got to see how this offseason goes. New England, though, the thing that I keep coming back to is, okay, you got 19 guys back. That's a lot. You had 4 guys that were already under contract. It's just not a star-studded group. Pania, outstanding. Mancienne, he's your highest-paid defender in the league. He came in mid-season after missing some time after the end of the last season in England. So don't think it could be expected that we saw the best of Michael Mancienne. It has to get better.
Yeah, his chalk outline is still laying in the middle of Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Yeah, it is. But he missed time from May until he came here in August. He didn't play. He wasn't playing. He wasn't training. You would expect him to be better. Zahibo, I think it was questionable on what Brad Friedel thought of him, but I don't know if he is a top half holding midfielder in this league. He's close. Fagundes is very good. Is he a game-changing attacking midfielder? Who plays next to Mancienne? Is it De La Mea? Yeah, okay. Kellen Rowe, what happens with him? Because it felt like he was just kind of wasted on this team. Andrew Farrell, good right back. Scott Caldwell, good holding midfielder. Caicedo, above average, I think, central midfielder in this league. Teal Bunbury, average forward in the league. Is that fair? Maybe slightly above average. And then there's not much else.
Average forward who's capable of the outlier season.
But, okay, so we just went through their key players. And that's it. Like, that's what they have is a lot of guys who are, they're going to have to spend. And they're going to have to bring in some game-changing players. because they don't have it right now. They don't have a group that's making the playoffs over Philadelphia, Columbus, NYC, DC, Montreal, potentially Chicago, potentially Cincinnati. This is a very average group at the moment.
Would 47 points get you into the playoffs next year?
I don't think this is a 47-point group. Not right now.
Because
I mean, if
even
you go and get
even
a
if they
DP,
are
go ahead.
average, I was just going to say, even if they are average, and you give them the benefit of the doubt in the 34-game schedule, that to me means 12, 11, and 11. That's 47 points. Just taking average right across the board. You're okay. Does 47 get you into the playoffs? I say no.
I don't think they go 12, 11, and 11. I
But
don't think that happens.
taking the notion of average,
I know,
meaning
but I don't think then they're below average, because I don't think that happens. I don't see it, because unless Mancienne is the lockdown center back that we have not seen yet, unless one of your goalkeepers becomes a top third goalkeeper in this league. Is it Cody Cropper? Is it Matt Turner? Is it Brad Knighton? I don't know, because they all played. Turner was supposed to be the second coming there for a while. Then he wasn't playing. Cropper was supposed to be that guy coming into the season. He didn't really get a whole lot of time. Knighton, we know he's a solid player. Solid is not good enough at this point. This is not MLS 10 years ago. So you potentially have a good center back in Mancienne. You potentially have a top-flight winger in Pinilla. Caicedo maybe is a top third, top quarter of the league midfielder. Zahibo is reaching to get there. And then you got Fagundes and Bunbury, who are good players. That's about it for what you have. So there's nothing special about this group. And you look at the teams that are in the playoffs, I think all of them have something special about them. That's where those designated player slots come in handy. You've got 3. It doesn't mean you have to spend $5 million on a player, but it means you've got 3 slots that you can go above $500,000 for, and you can go get somebody who can change a game for you. I think you need a forward. I think you probably need another winger opposite Pinilla, unless you're going to play Kellen Rowe there. You have to make a decision on Rowe, what you're going to do, because I think he's a guy who has value around the league if you don't want him. You've got to get some outside backs, because Gabriel Somi is not a starter in this league. Andrew Farrell is on the right side. You got to find a left back. You got to make a decision on De La Mea. Is he the guy next to Mancienne, or do you go in a different direction? There's a ton of questions, and I don't think sticking with the core is the way to go. I just don't, and we'll see. We'll see if Brad Friedel can turn it around. We'll see if the investment in a training ground and the things that New England is working on off the field, we'll see if that can change it. Homegrown players, can they come in and contribute immediately? I don't know. They've got one who's in the mix with the USU 20s that could be that guy. They also have Isaac Enking, who they signed going into this past season, who played a little bit. Does he make a step up? They don't have that USL affiliate. So guys like Brandon Bye, who ended up getting time as the season went on, didn't get as much time as you would have liked. Mark Segbers, you declined his option because you didn't get to see much of him. New England, I think, has some soul-searching to do if they want to keep up with the rest of the Eastern Conference. And it's only going to get tougher when Nashville and Miami come in. So I think New England has to look at this upcoming year, but they got to look 2 years down the road, too, when you've got 2 fairly aggressive ownership groups coming in who are not going to be content to sit back, and then the Eastern Conference gets more crowded. It's going to be difficult, and New England has to make the right moves now, or they could really be stuck in the muck for quite a while. We're going to take a break, come back. We'll talk about more teams who are trying to plan for next year. We'll talk about teams who are still playing this year. We'll get into all that as we go this morning on a Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, November 13th edition of the show, Tuesday Thoughts. We've got some thoughts to get into. MLS Cup ticketing is going to be one of those thoughts. But first, hey, let's welcome our new sponsor, enclosedlingerie.com. If you have a special wife, girlfriend in your life, you can sign up for enclosedlingerie.com. It's a monthly subscription, a little bit different than Beer of the Month or Flowers of the Month or anything like that. 100% size guarantee, so you don't have to worry about the fit. 30,000 couples have signed up for enclosedlingerie.com. So a little gift here, too, as one of our new sponsors. You can get $35 off a multi-month gift at Enclosed by using the code DOWNHERE at checkout. Down here is your code, $35 off enclosedlingerie.com. John, MLS Cup prices. And
yes,
just ticketing in general, because I think it's more complicated than just the pricing. What is going on with this right now?
we have folks who are commenting about pre-sale and are less than pleased with the number to the right of the dollar sign. And let's start with Chris Burns, who is saying, please talk today about how MLS owns MLS Cup final game and season ticket holders have no chance to buy their season seats, ! With a couple of hashtags that screw the founders and corporate money grab.
I don't even know if it's a corporate money grab, to be honest. I think that's an assumption. This is complicated because I'm trying to think if MLS has even had anything remotely like this type of situation before, and they haven't. They haven't had a season ticket base this large in any venue that they have booked MLS Cup where they knew the home team would be in it. Remember, for the longest time, it was a neutral site game. You had a few times where the home team did make it, but it was a neutral site game. Tickets had went on sale before. Different situation altogether. So since they went to the higher seed hosting, it's been at BMO Field the last 2 years. It's been at StubHub Center before that.
Mopfre.
Think. Yeah, it was at Mopfre. It was at Children's Mercy in Kansas City. So all smaller venues. Yeah, I think that's it. StubHub in 12, Kansas City in 13, StubHub in 14, Montfrey in 15, BMO the last 2 years. So all smaller venues, all smaller season ticket bases. A little bit easier to deal with. Here, you should be able to look at it as easy to deal with because you have a larger venue. You might have to move some people around. I totally get that because club seats are probably going to be a different thing. That's where the corporate side comes into it. Some seats might have to get moved. Totally understandable and inconvenience, but I get it. That should have been handled first before tickets go on sale. This is all my opinion. I don't know how the process worked. I don't know who organized it other than the league. I don't know what the thought process was, but I think you would want to offer as many people as possible to be in their seats that they have paid for all season. It would just seem to make sense. And I know MLS doesn't care about that because it's not their seats, but it would seem to be the smart way to play it. I don't know why that hasn't been the case here. The All-Star game is different. Understand it. It's an exhibition. It's a celebration. It's not a game involving your team that you've had season tickets for all season. The prices are a different conversation. It's kind of typical for them to go up for any kind of championship game. I get it. This happens all around the world. When you have big cup games, when you have big games, some teams price depending on the opponent, period. That's just how they price their tickets. I understand that. Obviously not necessarily a fan because I didn't win the lottery a few weeks ago and win the $1.6 billion jackpot. But I get that side of it. But the fact that you're not, I think, understanding how to accommodate as many of the fans who have season tickets as possible. And yeah, I know this is a different scale than you're ever used to, but come on. I think you have to be able to handle this better if you're Major League Soccer. Now, I would assume that there are blocks being held for supporters group members. I don't know how that process is going to work, but I would assume that is a little separate. There'd have to be tickets held for the visiting team and their supporters for sure. And you would assume that they're keeping the Atlanta United supporters in their area. If not, then that's craziness. If they're not doing that, then, come on, what are you doing? Are you paying attention? I don't know if that's the case or not. I would assume that it is, but I don't know for sure. Jarrett, you're kind of in a tricky situation here because it's not an Atlanta United home game. It is a Major League Soccer event. They're handling the way it's ticketed. I think it sounds like MLS needs to work with their teams a little bit better to handle these situations better.
They also need to apparently be doing better planning ahead of time because this is something that gets... You're MLS, you're discussing this a long time before right now. Like, this is, this is preseason event planning stuff we're talking. This isn't like, they made the playoffs and they're the 2 seed. That might be something we have to consider. Red Bulls, they're the 1 seed. This is something we should consider. Like, this is, you put in planning for this. You already ran the All-Star game, and yeah, it's a different kettle of fish, but you know what that building is capable of holding. You know how festivities are going to have to go. You know how this is going to lay out. So, be better. Please. Oh, it's a lot to ask.
You just had the All-Star game here.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Not that long ago.
That should have been the shining beacon as to what this city is capable of in hosting any kind of MLS event.
And yeah,
this should have been your red siren moment to sit there and say, oh, this place is going to be very full and very loud with a lot of Atlanta people here. Maybe we should try to figure something out and prepare for it.
This won't be nearly as neutral as that was. And that one had an Atlanta flavor to it. But this one's going to be something fierce, man. If it's here, you've got to, you can't move the supporters. You're going to amend the section, I'm assuming. Just be careful how you do that, especially considering if it is here, that means Atlanta has earned the right to host the game. So don't neuter the supporter section. Same goes for Red Bull Arena. No matter who wins, don't neuter supporter sections. Like, they've earned the right to host the game. They earned the right to cause as much chaos and mayhem with their sounds and their clapping and their Archie Eversoles as possible.
And I think generally they don't. I mean, you do get into some issues here with the capo stand because that is actually, those are suites that Atlanta United bought for that purpose. I'd be curious to see how that is handled. I don't know, John. This is tricky.
I just imagine them opening those suites up, and Arthur Blank buys them up and says, "Here, put the stand here anyway."
Oh no, I could definitely see that. Yeah, I could absolutely see that happening.
Yep.
Look, this is tricky because I don't know how. God, I mean, I don't think there's really a comparison because when it's World Series, when it's Stanley Cup Finals, when it's the NBA Finals, it's multiple games. You're not booking it this way. In a one-game championship game like this, you're talking Super Bowl, which a home team has never made it into their own building, right?
Close, yeah. Close but never.
They haven't. College football national championship, that hasn't happened. I don't think so anyway. I mean, I'm sure you've had some
Ryan
bowl
Denny
games
wants to
where
host it, Paul.
Nah, but you've had some bowl games where it's been close again, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Miami at the Orange Bowl.
Orleans.
Yeah, but that was an Orange Bowl game, so that's a little different.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a comparison here between a team who earns the right to host the game due to the regular season and moving through the playoffs, and then it being a league event. That's awkward. And they have to figure, again, this is part of that growth of MLS. They have to figure out how to manage that. If you're going to have the higher seed host, they need to truly host the game. And that would mean doing ticketing. If you have to set aside a percentage or certain seats or whatever for corporate partners, which, hey, it's part of the deal. For visiting fans, sure. For the general public, okay, sure. All that's fine. All that's completely normal. It's easy to do in Atlanta because you have a large venue to work with. Beyond that, and beyond some people being inconvenienced by that and taking care of them, this should be pretty easy to handle, I think. Why is it not?
I think that as a part of the growth curve, I think that you have, regardless of what business we're talking about here, just in business in general, if your business is booming, if your business is turning a corner, and you have something that you haven't experienced before, it's all about, it's about being proactive versus being reactive. And these days, in a lot of businesses, you have a lot of reactive behavior instead of proactive behavior. The event happens in front of you, and you're like, oh, crap, we have to do something, instead of thinking the process through and not waiting until the last minute for something to happen, which could have been an anticipated result off the top. I just think that there's, in a lot of businesses these days when they're growing, I think there's more reaction than proaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Colonel's asking a question about fan base size. Look, the fan base size and the stadium size should play to MLS's benefit here, because when you have MLS Cup at, let's say, Kansas City, like you did in 2013, you have a lot of tickets, you have a lot of season ticket holders based off that fan base, and that stadium is full on a regular basis. There's nowhere to put people. So you're going to have a lot of tricky situations with all of your season ticket holders maybe not being able to get into that game because of your corporate partners for the championship game. That is part of the deal. Corporate partners are not going anywhere, folks. That's what keeps this league growing. In Atlanta, though, you have a large fan base, a larger fan base than you've had at any of these other games. You have to take advantage of that, and you have to accommodate it. That requires more planning. That requires more preparation, because that fan base needs to be as close as possible into their seats they've paid for all year. If some people have to move, it's part of the deal. You make it work. The team can handle that, you would think, and can help make that work. Other places, it's been more difficult because you have a limited capacity and you're shoving corporate tickets or other league tickets or other things into it, and it's tricky. This should be easy. It should be easy. You have a large fan base, you take care of them. If you have to move some season ticket holders to different seats, you do that. You give season ticket holders a chance to buy their tickets, and that's it. Then you got, 30,000 tickets available? You
55%.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying 55% of capacity would be season ticket holders because 37,000, right? Season tickets?
Somewhere in that ballpark. We don't know the exact number, but yeah, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't know how many corporate tickets or how many league tickets are pulled. I mean, let's go big and say 5,000. And for this game, yeah, you could easily accommodate that. So okay, then you're talking. Let's round it up to 45. All right, 45,000 tickets that you need to make sure those people are buying their tickets. If they don't, then it goes back into the pot, and you sell the rest. It should be pretty easy here. The fan base size, what I'm saying, Colonel, is MLS has never had to deal with a fan base and a season ticket base this large. This is 3 on the small side. 3 times anyone they've had to deal with in terms of season tickets. Because I don't think Toronto, Kansas City, or the Galaxy have more than 15,000 season tickets. I don't think they do. Kansas City would maybe close. And here you're talking 37 plus. So that's different. Still, the size of the stadium should make it easy to accommodate. So I don't know. I don't know who created the process. I don't know why it's happening now. I would assume it's been talked about before. I would assume the All-Star game should have given you a primer of it. I don't know what the process is like in New York, or, well, that'd be the only other place it could be. Kansas City and Portland don't have to worry about it. So Red Bull Arena is a different situation altogether. It's smaller. You don't have a large season ticket base at all. It's probably a lot easier to handle. Here, you have to try to figure out how to accommodate that many people for season tickets, and you should have thought of it before now. And you should accommodate them 100%.
The season ticket base for Atlanta United exceeds every attendance for MLS Cup dating back to 2009.
Yeah. I mean, it's a whole different animal. Seattle is the one that would be similar, but they haven't hosted MLS Cup in this situation. They hosted in 2009 when it was a neutral site game, and it was Real Salt Lake and the Galaxy. This is different. It's not that crazy, though, because you have a 75,000-seat venue. You've got room to work with. So I don't know why this is so difficult on the MLS side of it. I wish they had planned this better, and I wish they had probably thought about the differences in the two venues and not tried to do a one-size-fits-all. I'm sure you have a few different challenges at Red Bull Arena, even with a smaller season ticket base. Here it should be easy. It's frustrating that it's not. And now it sounds like, too, you have a lot of people who are trying to get on the presale and get their tickets, and they're getting bumped out. Like, they should have the first right to their ticket as long as it's not needed by the league for X, Y, or Z, corporate, whatever. Then you accommodate them first, get them moved. Then you give people the chance to buy their tickets. Then what's not claimed at a certain date time goes on sale to the public. It seems like a logical progression to me.
Is that second word, logical?
Well, I'm sorry, but me bringing up logic on a regular basis should not be a problem. And if it is, well, then I'm sorry. If it is for the league, if it is for soccer in the country, then come on, y'all. Like, it's not that difficult. Think through the easiest way to sort something out. Well, then people need to be held accountable. And I'm not going to stop using logic because of that, because that's kind of how I was taught to think. I went to school.
Yes.
You know, it was a good lessons I learned there. So it's kind of worked. I don't know. I got really nothing here. So hopefully MLS learns from this, because I don't think this will be the last time that Atlanta United potentially will host an MLS Cup final. But I hope that people who have made Atlanta United what it is are not being treated unfairly because MLS doesn't know how to handle tickets for MLS Cup. I really hope that's not the case. And it doesn't sound good based off this initial presale, but hopefully they have time to learn and fix it and make it right for people, because this is far more complicated than it should be.
And as we go to break, Andrew Baker, soccer listening in Germany. If you had or do win the lottery, I hope you wouldn't stop what you are doing with Soccer Down here at Longshoe and Color Commentary.
No, I'm not going anywhere. It'll just make it easier.
I don't think any of us would.
No, let's just make it easier. We'd have our own studio then. We could be on TV.
Yes, correct.
That type of stuff. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back. More Tuesday thoughts after this.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star, and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Tuesday Thoughts edition of Soccer Down here. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you this morning. Talking tickets for MLS Cup. Sounds like it's an interesting process. We're already seeing some pop up on the secondary market, which is no surprise. I mean, that's how it goes. They're not actually real tickets yet because we don't know who's hosting the game yet. There is something called the Eastern Conference Finals that have to be decided first. Although Bradley Wright Phillips did say something this week that was
he did drop the gauntlet.
He did. Bradley Wright Phillips said that the winner of Atlanta and the New York Red Bulls will win MLS Cup. Bold statement. They'll host it.
Vegas is probably going to agree.
Vegas will probably agree, and Vegas is probably happy he said it because they want to drive some money on somebody in this. I'm not so sure because I think Kansas City and Portland are both two teams that can win MLS Cup in a one game for sure. The winner's hosting, though, and the winner will be the favorite. I don't think there's any question about that. But let's talk about the Western Conference for a minute, Jarrett. So, Sporting Kansas City and Portland. Sporting Kansas City in previous years has been the best defense in the league. They had some issues this season, although the talent is still there. Real Salt Lake scored some goals late when you would have thought that Kansas City would have had that game sealed. Portland has some of the best attacking talent in the league in Diego Valeri, Sebastian Blanco, but they've really gotten here on their defense most of the year, and they're completely fine sitting back and playing on the counter. is this going to be, what kind of series are you looking for here? Are you thinking this is going to be a 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, very cagey defensive series? Thinking it might open up a little bit? Who are you looking to be the keys here?
I think it's kind of going to be a bit of a snapping turtle where it gets that cagey. It's 180 minutes. Let's approach it like we approached the last series with Atlanta, where it's a 180-minute game. 90 minutes is nothing more than the 2 whistles at halftime. I think that first 90 minutes could be cagey. Everything feels itself out. Second, the third 45 minutes, cagey, feels itself out. Last 45 minutes, the head pops out and bites a broom handle in half. I could see it being a close match, and then you get into the second half of the second game, and RSL kind of rears its head again, and all hell breaks loose. Because here was the thing about Sporting Kansas City. As good as the defense was locked out, they started the year rough on defense, and every now and then they still had games where they kind of just turnstile defense would kind of rear its head. Now, it wasn't ever at literally the worst time imaginable. It almost was. It should have been. RSL, by my opinion, should have put one of those shots in the net and eliminated Kansas City. Kansas City gave them the chances, and they just didn't do it. I could see this, though, turning into the kind of game where one of these two teams has to bunker down, either at home or on the road in the last 30 minutes of the second leg. And somebody has to rely on that defense not completely imploding. And it's totally possible for both of them that it could. But I think it will be kind of cagey. I think it'll be physical. We might get a coach fight. Who knows?
Peter Vermes and Giovanni Savarese are big guys. That would be a knockdown drag out for the ages if that was to happen. We're not endorsing any kind of coach fighting on the touchline at all between Peter Vermes and Giovanni Savarese. Somebody's getting hurt if that happens. John, what are you looking for in the series?
I thought it was going to be cagey, and I'm thinking it was going to be, goalless 1-1 somewhere in there. After 180 minutes, they keep playing until 3 days later when it's settled in penalties. But, of course, the more that I say that, obviously that means it's going to be something like 5-4, and it'll be like the second leg of Sporting and RSL. I just think that with two guys who are as uber competitive, if that's a word, as Savarese and Peter Vermes are, I think that it's the game is going to be the personification of who they are as individuals out there on the pitch, and I think it's going to be physical. I think it's going to be chippy at times. I think it's going to be very stop-starty when it comes to offense. So I'm looking at something that's not going to have a lot of goals scored, but of course, I've been wrong about 130% of the time when it comes to these things, so it's probably going to end up being 5-4. So I'll stick with my original thought of it being very, very cagey and low scoring.
Yeah, I think it's going to be low scoring. I don't think either team opens up too much here. I think the two guys to look at who need to step up and have a big series are Andy Polo for Portland and Felipe Gutierrez for Kansas City. I mean, we know the stars for each team. We know who both teams will be looking to. This kind of series, tight as it will be, I think it's going to need somebody else to play above what they've done this season. Gutierrez started off hot, had an injury. He's been good. He needs to raise his game for Kansas City to win it, and I think Andy Polo has to step up and be that third option outside of Valeri and Blanco for Portland. They need some support. Ebobisse has been good up top for them. Could be Armenteros if he's healthy, but Polo as the other midfielder in that attacking three is the one to me who has to give you a little bit more here if the Timbers are going to pull the upset. We're going to take a break, bring Joe Patrick from Dirty South Soccer into the mix. We'll see what he thinks about the Western Conference and what he thought about Atlanta and New York City. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume. Yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, November 13th edition of the show. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you. And now we're joined by Joe Patrick from Dirty South Soccer. How's it going, Joe?
Things are going well. Can't complain.
We've talked a lot yesterday about Atlanta and NYC, but I have not heard your thoughts yet on Sunday's match and just the series as a whole. How do you feel about Atlanta United going into the Eastern Conference Finals?
Sorry, I just had my mic on mute. Yeah, actually, I just pulled a Jarrett, as they say.
Very nice.
More a John.
As they say, I have a term. I loved it. I'm happy. I am someone.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about this team. It's weird because obviously you want to just see the team win and score a bunch of goals and just look as dominating as possible. That's kind of the more fun thing to watch. But I think looking at this from the brightest with the rosiest colored glasses on possible, I think that, winning kind of in the way that Atlanta United did, even though they had a 3-1 win in the second leg, it was a gritty performance. It was a gutsy performance. It was a defensive performance. They only had, I think, 30% possession in the game. It was it was not, I don't want to say the style, but it was just a different kind of setup from Atlanta United in these two legs, and it gives me a ton of optimism, more than I think I say that I would have if they had gone out and played a very attacking style and won 5-0 or whatever. But it gives me hope. It gives me hope that this team can win when things are tough and things aren't always going their way. I think that's been kind of the criticism levied against them by a lot of national media, and I think that there was something to the point that Atlanta had struggled to actually get results against these top teams over the last couple of years, or at least this year. So it's nice to see this team having gotten those tough results. And obviously having Miguel Almiron back is huge. He just makes this team totally different, and it's nice. It's a nice warm blanket to see him out there on the field doing his normal Miguel Almiron things.
Well, with Miggy as the electric blanket for the Five Stripes, let me go to one of our listeners, Drew Gano, and he says, the way Atlanta has adapted in the playoffs, I'd be surprised if we don't see some different tactics against Red Bulls. # whatever it takes. # Tuesday Thoughts. How different do you think things could be, if at all?
Yeah, that's a great question or comment, and it's a good one, because this is the one thing that I have still kind of disagreed with Tata Martino on, the way that he set up his team especially when they played Red Bulls in September. in a game that was essentially a supporter shield decider. I just thought it was too risky of an approach from him to want his team playing the ball out of the back. And then, I understand what he was going for. If you play the ball out of the back, you're asking Red Bulls to come up because that's what they want you to do. They're going to press at that moment. And if you can beat them at their press, you're in behind them and you're going to have chances. Unfortunately for Atlanta, they just didn't get in behind them. They didn't get that part of it. They were beaten by the press. I think in that game they only had like 22 passes or 11 passes or something in the attacking third. It was something crazy. Like they basically and they still had like 2 really good chances on Luis Robles, but they just were not possessing the ball. It wasn't that kind of game. So it'll be interesting to see how Tata sets up his team. I would prefer, and the key to me, when we're looking at this game, I would encourage any fan, pay attention to what is happening off goal kicks. Because I think this is really where Red Bulls set up their team, is based on what the opposition does off of goal kick. If the goalkeeper is distributing the ball to the center backs or distributing the ball short on the ground, that's what they want. I think that's the ideal situation for them. That allows them to go up and press. What I argued that Tata Martino should have done in that game was to kick long from goal kicks. Basically, what this would have done is it would have forced both teams to fight to win the second ball around midfield stripe. And regardless of who ends up winning the possession from that moment, at least the ball is at midfield and it's not right in front of your own goal. So I think that's going to be something to really watch out for in this series.
And looking at this game coming up, as that was happening after the game, I discussed with somebody that looks like it's Red Bulls. Okay, well, I guess we're in for another dogfight. How much, looking at what happened, does it give you any confidence for CONCACAF Champions League as well, or you try not to look ahead beyond the Red Bulls thing, just the way the team played in a cup situation?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of similar, right? And with what I was talking about, where it's good to see this team, get results in these tough games against a good opponent. And I think that, that lends itself promising for this coming tie against Red Bulls and for MLS Cup. And then I think, yeah, like you said, I think it lends itself to CONCACAF Champions League, where the games are going to be very similar. I think Atlanta is set up to do very well in CONCACAF Champions League. I think that, just with the players they have, they're maybe a little more accustomed to the style of play that they'll see in that competition. They have the dynamism going forward to be able to score goals. That's the thing, is a lot of teams cannot, like, if the play is defensively, with a true five man at the back shape, they don't have the players going forward that can really create the attack, like Miguel Almiron, a Joseph Martinez, and a Tito Vijal, but like those kinds of players who can really create goals out of nothing, really, just with the three of them. Now, that being said, next year when in CONCACAF Champions League, who knows if, how many of those players are still here. But that regardless, I think that, the club will make sure this team is very strong. If, stronger than this year, I would imagine is their goal, to build the squad. So, yeah, I think it lends itself well to that. And I've just been so excited ever since we qualified for CONCACAF Champions League. I just can't wait to see Atlanta United participate in that competition.
I think a player that hasn't been talked about a ton after the series with NYC is Franco Escobar. Escobar being able to play as a right wing back. We've seen Julian Gressel play there a lot this season. I think Escobar is more of a natural defender than Gressel, and his work for me was critical in getting Atlanta through the series. What do you think of him in both games?
He's fascinating. I wrote in my 5 Thoughts column that published yesterday that, I think that these 2 games have been 2 of his best games in an Atlanta United shirt in this tie against NYCFC. And it's funny to say that because we talked to him last week, and he admits that he missed a total sitter against NYC and Yankee Stadium off a set piece, and then also in this game, obviously there was when the goal that Atlanta United gave up was kind of partially on him. Mm-hmm. So but the thing about Franco is he's going to kind of have some of those moments, but I think you're right. Like what he gives the team going forward it's actually kind of fascinating because we've always pictured Julian Gressel as like the ideal right wing back for this team. And I think that, to be fair, I think it is his best position. It kind of highlights Gressel's strengths better than him playing in any other position. But I think the team really benefits from Franco Escobar being out there. I think the team as a whole benefits from Escobar's work rate and his defensive ability, which is better than Gressel's. And Gressel, that's to be expected. Gressel basically played as a forward in college. He gives you a different dimension. His speed is deceptive. It's funny. One time at training, we were talking. I think it was at training. Anyway, I remember Franco Escobar laughing when someone mentioned that Miguel Almiron was the fastest player on the team or something, and he was like, "No, I'm faster than Miguel." So he definitely rates himself in that regard.
He's not far off.
Yeah, no, he's very fast, and when I think playing him in a right wing back spot like that really, in that position, you really get to see the benefits of that speed, and it's definitely underrated. And it'll be really fascinating to watch how he develops. I know Tata Martino has said he was born as a center back, but he certainly looks fine in this right wing back role.
Yeah, he's one of those outside backs you could see becoming a center back as he gets later in his career. But right now, the range and just the amount of ground he can cover, it's perfect for what this team needs at the moment. And going back to the question from Drew Gano about, do you expect changes and the way they changed going into this, I don't know how many changes you're going to see. I think the defensive setup is what Tata Martino wants to do against the Red Bulls as well, and I think the style is pretty similar in, just like you said, not dealing with that pressure and saying, okay, this is a different situation. It's not a regular season game where we have other games to make up a loss here. This is do or die. If we have 30% possession, we have 30% possession. That's just how it's going to go.
Right. Yeah.
And Joe, can you hang with us one more segment?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Thoughts on that real quick, and then we'll go to break.
Well, I was just going to say, I would be shocked if they go away from this 5 at the back, 3 at the back at this point. Tata Martino has said he's a manager who does not like to chop and change his lineups. And I think that, when we look at the lineup that started in the second leg against NYC with Miles Robinson coming in, it actually makes more sense thinking about it afterwards, thinking that is actually the easiest change he could have made to replace Jeff Lorenowitz in the lineup, just bring in a like-for-like sub, and that's it, and not have to mess with anybody else. So I think that it's it would be shocking to me if we see many changes at all from this lineup.
All right, we're going to take a break, come back. Hour number 2, we'll kick off with Joe. We'll continue on Atlanta and Red Bulls preview. We'll also talk a little Western Conference and get Joe's thoughts on that. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket, you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here, November 13th, Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show. If you got any Tuesday thoughts for Joe Patrick from Dirty South Soccer, go ahead and chime in now. We've got him for one more segment. John, I believe you had a question to kick it off.
Yeah, I just wanted to get Joe's thoughts on 2 particular players, and one of them we were talking about in the break while we were waiting for the commercials to finish up. Eric Remedi, Miles Robinson. Your takeaway of having both of their performances in leg 2.
You mean Eric Remedi?
Remedi? All of choice D, all the above.
Yeah, I would say, it's funny. I rewatched the game yesterday on TV, and it's just something I always like to do, just to rewatch. You pick up things that you don't necessarily see. Not that I didn't really see this during the game, but if you have ESPN Plus, go on there. If you have a kid who's playing, especially if he's a central midfielder, pull up that game and just have him watch Eric Remedi in that game. It was really a masterclass in terms of a defensive performance with an individual task to shut down Maxi Morales. I mean, he was shadowing him all over the pitch. Well, not all over. He was shadowing him in a specific zone in front of the back four. As soon as Maxi Morales had to drop, right, to try to collect the ball. He couldn't get away from Remedi. So he had to drop. And then once he dropped to a point where he was clearly no longer a danger, then Remedi would sag off and let him go. But any time he was in a dangerous zone, Remedi had him. He had him in his back pocket, and you could see him even when he wasn't on the ball. He's constantly checking to see where he is and making sure he's got the appropriate distance between him and Maxi Morales at all times. So that was really fascinating for me to watch on the rewatch. I would say with Miles Robinson, like I said in the last segment, we talked about him it was being a surprise that he was into the starting lineup, but you think about what he's good at, and it made total sense that he can come in and do that job to be a third center back. And I think that that's the key. Is I would be much more worried if Robinson is playing in a back four where he's playing as one of the 2 center backs. It's a much trickier situation at that point. You definitely want a more experienced player in there, because it's just a much more difficult game mentally playing with 2 center backs as opposed to 3. With 3, when you have an extra center back as cover, it really allows Miles Robinson to do what he's best at, which is to be a true stopper. He had some shaky moments in the beginning trying to passing the ball. He had a back pass that was a little off cue to Gazan. I think he, maybe put one out for a corner under pressure. But he grew into the game for sure. And I thought that just his strengths and what he does well in the game really gave Atlanta a huge platform to build off of from the back. I think that, he's very solid, and I wouldn't be surprised if he is called on again, at some point later in this playoffs against Red Bulls, or even in an MLS Cup final. Knocking on wood, but if it gets to that point and he is needed, I wouldn't have a problem seeing him in the starting lineup.
Another guy we saw in limited play once again, Ezequiel Barco has kind of become the we're going to put him on the field and let him run around like a chicken with his head cut off kind of role. And but the second game in a row was fun to watch. He and Tito both came off the bench. In that formation, that look right there, is there a better set of weapons you can pull off the bench late in the game if you need to close things out or chase than what you can get with guys like Tito and Zeke?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think that that's one of the added benefits of playing with this system, with the 5-3-2, is that, like you said, it allows you to, if the game does not go according to plan, you can change it in a big way, and that's tough to for an opposing manager. Let's say if Atlanta United goes down 1-0, and Tata Martino says, okay, let's make some changes. Let's put on Tito for one of the central midfielders. Let's say even that change is going to drastically affect how the opposing defense has to defend Atlanta United. When you have a guy like Tito's speed, I mean, there might not be a faster guy in the league than Tito Villalba. At least over a long distance sprinting down the field. That's huge. That's crazy. And obviously, obviously the shape gives you a more solid platform just to build off, so you don't get in that situation. But yeah, being able to bring those guys off the bench is a luxury no one in this league has. You look at the benches of other teams, and I don't even want to talk about like the price tags of these players, but Tito was a DP last year. You have these guys who are not only are they talented, they're very experienced. Like Tito Villalba has played in a Copa Libertadores final, or maybe not maybe it was a Argentine Primera final.
No, it was the Libertadores.
It was
final.
Yeah, it was Libertadores. He played with
San Lorenzo.
He played. Yep, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, huge. It's just massive. I don't think it can be overstated enough. Actually.
All right, it's Tuesday Thoughts, so we got to get a little deeper here, Joe. We'll talk Western Conference before we finish because I want to see what you're thinking about that. But looking at 2019, as you have a lot of teams who are starting to look ahead, which team do you think could be the biggest surprise in 2019? A team that either barely got into the playoffs this year and is poised to make a big jump, or a team that didn't get in that looks like they could be building to a big 2019? Who's going to be our biggest surprise next year?
That's an interesting question. I think, this is just off a cursory thought of this because I would need to take a deeper look. But I think the one for me is Philadelphia Union. I think that they finally got something going at the end of the year. Not finally, that sounds bad, but think about how long they went basically without a striker. I mean, they had CJ Sapong playing as a striker, and I think he had like one goal or something for them for a long stretch of the season. I think that they have a solid foundation to build off of with Mark McKenzie and Trusty, and I really like them long term. I think Borik Dochkal is one of the best playmakers in this league. They just have a lot of players that seem to fly under the radar. It'll be interesting to see if Jim Curtin is still there. I know that fans are kind of split on him, and I don't really have an opinion on him, to be honest. I'm not familiar enough with his work to say whether he should have been doing better or worse there. But they're the one that kind of when you ask that question, just kind of jumped to me.
So then let me follow that up. How would you view the new guys as they come in? When you look at an FC Cincinnati, how would you see them in year one, say in the Eastern Conference?
It's so hard to tell with them right now because they're just so early in their franchise. They don't really have a squad yet. There's still a lot to be determined with them. We'll have to see. Obviously, I think any expansion franchise is really carried by their DPs. So it'll be really interesting to see how they go about targeting. What kind of philosophy they use in terms of what players they want to acquire. We saw it with Atlanta United. They wanted to acquire definitely a South American flavored team. I think that a lot of why South American players appealed to Carlos Bocanegra and Darren Eales was kind of based on the philosophy that, they wanted players that could, that were durable and could withstand like the hot conditions and kind of had that aggression to them, which was just the Atlanta philosophy. And not to say that that's, other philosophies won't work, but it'll be interesting to see who Cincinnati signs and kind of what philosophy, what track they start to follow as they sign those players. But I do really like the fact that they got a head start. Like they're already making moves. They've done some things on their roster to set themselves up already. So that's always good to see them, preparing. They've been preparing. It seems like they've had a plan. Very much unlike Minnesota when we came into the league. Minnesota, they found out very late, to be fair to them, that they were coming into MLS, so they were kind of flying more by the seat of their pants and going into the first year. I think Cincinnati will be a little bit more prepared. So it'll be interesting to watch, see kind of what players they try to acquire and try to determine how those pieces are going to fit together.
To be fair, Cincinnati does have our Lord and Savior, Forrest Lasso, on roster bringing to MLS, so they'll be just fine. On the contrary, that was all positive. Let's get negative. Of the teams who made the playoffs this year, which one do you think is most likely to have a drop-off into 2019?
Let's see. I need to pull up the I need a list. I need a list in front of me. Who made the playoffs?
So teams who are out, you've got Real Salt Lake, you've got Seattle, you've got Dallas.
Seattle could be tough. Seattle could be tough. If they lose Chad Marshall, they're going to have to replace him. And probably Roman Torres. I don't know what his standing is with the team at this point. They could have some building to do. I'll be honest, I've just never been sure about Schmetzer. Ever since they lost the MLS Cup final to Toronto last year, it was just such a bad tactical setup from him, and he just seems to be he's very much in my opinion, like the Harry Redknapp style manager, in that he depends on the players really fighting for him and loving him, but tactically he's not going to do many interesting things to kind of give his team an advantage. So yeah, but they are Seattle, so they always seem to be there. So it's tough to really bet against them, but they would be a team to watch out for that could slip up.
Yeah, that's my shout too. That's a good one. I think they're getting older. Rui Diaz is a great addition, but you're going to have to figure out center back, because I don't see Torres back, and I don't see Marshall being able to continue playing at the same level, not after the way that knee went out. He had the surgery. We'll see how he recovers. But let's talk about their big rivals, Portland and Kansas City, Western Conference Finals. This one feels like a very tactical matchup between Savarese and Vermes. Who do you think is going to get out of it and get to MLS Cup?
Yeah, this is fascinating because we were talking about it in our Dirty South Soccer writers' room yesterday about which one would give Atlanta more fits. If Atlanta made it to the final, like which one would you rather play? And what I was kind of joking is that at this point, I'm just scared of every single team out there. It's very hard for me to have a positive feeling. So, I could easily make the case that both teams would set up to give Atlanta difficulty. But the honest truth of this is that these teams play in completely different ways, which makes it a fascinating tactical battle. Portland are going to want to counter. They're going to want to sit deep. Very similar to what Atlanta has done in this postseason, and they're very sharp on the counter. 1-2 touch passing all the way down the field, and if they can strike gold with Ebabisse, then they've got a fighting chance. And Sporting Kansas City are the complete opposite. They are the platonic ideal of the 4-3-3. They're going to want to possess. They're going to keep like 70% possession against Portland probably. And try to win in a completely different way. So it'll be just a fascinating tie to watch. I think, in these situations, I had always put my money on the team that's going to have the ball. I like Sporting Kansas City in this series. I just think they have better players. I think they're a more talented roster. And that is definitely part of it. And I trust them a little bit more, but I could easily see it going the other way. I think over the long term, what you see with these two styles is that if you play in the style Portland does, you're never going to pick up as many points over the course of a regular season. But when they get into a head-to-head matchup in the postseason, anything can happen. I would not look at this and say, oh, well, Sporting Kansas City was better in the regular season, so they're going to have the leg up. That does not matter at all. Sporting Kansas City has a better system to pick up points in the regular season, but Portland's going to expose their exact weakness, and vice versa. They're just a perfect match for each other. So it'll be fascinating to watch, but I will pick Sporting Kansas City to go through to the MLS Cup final.
Joe, let us know what's coming up at Dirty South Soccer during the international break week.
Yeah, it's a real bummer. We'll be, obviously recapping the rest of this New York City tie and just kind of keeping tabs, crossing our fingers, joining Tata Martino in prayer that no one gets hurt over the international break, and then
lighting candles.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be giving the sign of the cross to the players on the TV as as they're standing there to wait to the start of the game. And then we'll be preparing for Red Bulls. We are hoping on my podcast, Five Stripe Final, to get a special guest with us this week. So that's looking good. So look out for that as well.
Very cool. Thanks, Joe. As always, we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.
We're going to take a quick break. Come back. More Tuesday Thoughts after this.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here. Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show, November 13th. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you this morning. Let's get into FC Cincinnati. They unveiled their Major League Soccer crest. Slightly different. I like it. I know a lot of people were trashing it. I don't know why. I mean, it's not that dramatically different. I think it works. Here's a piece, John. It's WCPO, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Kristen Hartman is the anchor, and she tosses to Jake Ryle, who was at the reveal party. The soundbite you hear is from one of the members of the design team.
Here you go.
Check it out. FC Cincinnati has a sharp new logo, just as the team moves up to the MLS. 9 on your sides, Jake Ryle breaks down how design was shaped by the city itself. Jake, lots of celebration out your way.
I gotta tell you, this place is bumping. It's Woodward Theater here in Over the Rhine. I want to give you that look at that new crest. You're able to see it up on the stage right now. That is the new brand, the new crest that they have went ahead and gone and unveiled. Now you'll notice the crest, Cincinnati on the heart. They wanted to focus on the heart of the crest. I talked to Alan Koch, he's the coach of the team. He tells me having the new logo will be a big help to bring everyone together into Major League Soccer. Now the typography even has a German heritage on it. The bottom right, the lion that has become synonymous with FC Cincinnati. As for the designers, Interbrand Agency helped with the brand. They're a Cincinnati company and they wanted to incorporate aspects of Cincinnati as well as the West End.
We found all these 5-pointed shaped crests, which is a beautiful pentagram, which also just happened to be the shape of a panel from a soccer ball. And we wanted a crest that didn't look like anything else in the MLS.
And upstairs here at the Woodward Theater, folks are having their first opportunity to buy some merchandise. As for me, I really can't even hear myself think at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and send it back to you in the studio. For now, reporting live and over the Rhine, Jake Ryle, 9 on your side.
Raucous crowd at the theater in Cincinnati last night for it. I watched some of that announcement. And Jeff Birding, club president, if you listen to him give speeches, you want to run through walls. I mean, you turn into the Kool-Aid man. It's really impressive. Let's get in. I mean, the crest, it's a crest. I like it. I don't know, other than branding and trademarks and all that, how necessary a redesign was. But this one works for me. I think it's fine. You get into all the different design elements, and you're linking to the west end of the city where the stadium will be built. And I don't know about a winged lion. Don't recall ever seeing one of those, but okay, it's
Greek
fine.
mythology.
Yeah, and this is a German city anyway. It's fine. It's fine. It's a logo. It's fine. That's not the important thing to us. We're going to talk about what's going on the field and what will be going on the field for FC Cincinnati coming into the league next year. We've talked the expansion draft. They will be able to pick up 5 players. Teams who lost a player to LAFC cannot lose a player to FC Cincinnati. That's the twist on the expansion draft this year. But Sam Stejskal, MLSsoccer.com, just posted an article, perfect timing, about an hour ago, looking at what this team could look like on the field. It's unlikely, according to Jeff Birding and Luke Sassano, the technical director, that you will see another designated player before the team starts play. Fernando Adi is a designated player. He will be there to start with. You also brought in Fatai Alashe from San Jose, expecting to sign 9 to 10 guys from the USL team that was the best team in the regular season. I think this was a different... I know people are going to compare it to Minnesota, and completely understandable, but I think this is a little bit different. I think, one, it's a roster that's closer to being able to compete in MLS than Minnesota was coming out of the North American Soccer League. I think they've had a little bit more time to prep as well. And I think they brought in guys this year specifically to prepare for MLS next year. And I think one of them is Forrest Lasso, a guy we've had on the show before. USL best 11 this season. His development has been a lot of fun to watch. Big guy coming into Charleston, not all that highly rated out of college. Watched him grow into the role in Charleston. Then he moves to Cincinnati and just keeps on progressing. He's a guy that can start in Major League Soccer, in my opinion, day one. Maybe some growing pains. Needs to get a little bit better with the ball at his feet. But his size gives them a weapon on set pieces and makes it difficult to play direct against them. There's going to be more guys from the USL team that come up. And John, I mean, you followed Cincinnati pretty closely as they built this team. I don't think this is going to be Minnesota's situation, even if Adi is the only designated player in 2019. I think Cincinnati will be far more competitive than Minnesota was year one.
Yeah, and you're looking at the 2 words in the Stejskal article that stick out to me are continuity and cohesion over the big splashes in the market. And so you're looking at Adi, you're looking at Alashe. Apparently, there's an option.
Splashes. Now, let's be real here, because people will say, well, it's Minnesota. You went out in the summer and you brought in Adi and Alashe from MLS on MLS deals. So it's a different type of splash. It's not Minnesota, who came in with Christian Ramirez, who you didn't even keep, and Miguel Ibarra, who hasn't been a regular starter. Those were your 2 big, high-profile players coming in with your team. Cincinnati going out and getting Adi, Alashe, and the players that are ready to make the jump from USL, Emmanuel Ledesma being a key for me. Yep. This is a whole different situation. They made their splash. They just made it in the summer.
And you're also looking at the idea of possibly permanently having Paconate as a part of the deal. Jimmy McLaughlin, I knew, was a name that was early on. Corbin Bone is one of the linchpins that they had in their midfield when you and I got to see them when they came to town for our coverage of ATL UTD2. So there are pieces there, and I think that the successes that this roster had in the Eastern Conference in the USL. I think that continuity and bringing in Ade and Alashe early, I think helped out getting everything ready for this push to MLS. I'm looking forward to seeing who else stays from the USL roster, but there are pieces here that I'm looking forward to seeing them at the next level to see how they respond in addition to the folks who've already been there.
Yeah, Lasso's a guy who I think is a starter at the MLS level. I think Emmanuel Ledesma is a guy who will play significant minutes in MLS. McLaughlin and Bone feel more like depth pieces. Bone's been in MLS before. McLaughlin has as well. He was a former homegrown with Philadelphia. Bone played 20 times with Chicago and a couple times with Philadelphia. I think those are good depth pieces to have, good character guys to have, good guys for setting the tone for what FC Cincinnati is. It's going to be how they manage, not so much the designated player side, but how they manage the TAM, Jarrett, that I think will decide how successful Cincinnati can be. You have a goal scorer in Adi, who we know can do it in this league. You have a center back in Lasso that you can build around. Ledesma is a player who I think you can build around in the midfield. Alashe, I believe, is a starter in this league. You have a good core, but it's how you use that TAM money is what will separate Cincinnati from the rest of the pack.
Yeah, it's going to be the moves that, really set Atlanta apart, making the smart moves within the league. The Jeff Lorenowitz kind of moves, the Michael Parkhurst kind of moves, guys who weren't designated players or draft picks, but the linchpins in the sense that, guys who have experience, they know how the league works, they know how to deal with the grind, the travel, everything like that. And if they were younger, I'd be curious if you had Parkhurst. I don't know the contract situations, but guys like Parkhurst and Lorenowitz are two guys specifically who, if they were younger, I could see being lured up there to kind of be the shepherds. But I could see them looking at a guy like a Mikey Ambrose or the like. Somebody, if you're worried about expansion draft, getting someone who has that MLS experience, who's been around it now for a while, but who's still young and has comfort in playing the full grind and dealing with not just playing the game, but dealing with a healthy locker room and knowing how a healthy locker room is supposed to function. Those sorts of things, and that'll be important in how they put it together.
Yeah, that'll be critical. Free agency will be another very important part of this. That's where Jeff Lorenowitz came to Atlanta. Right now, the only player that we know has been specifically linked to being a potential free agent is Chris Tierney from New England. Coming off of a knee injury, you would have some questions there. But a veteran like that who knows the league and can provide that core to the team, I think will be really important. But for me, it's the TAM signings like we saw here in Atlanta, like a Leandro Gonzalez-Perez. That type of player, that type of level is what can separate you from the rest of the pack. Look at what Houston's done. I mean, if you go to Central America and get talent out of Honduras, if you go, to Chile, Peru, find talent there, Ecuador, you don't have to spend crazy money. You don't have to spend Atlanta United money to go find talent. That's the thing about this hemisphere is it's there. It's just, how is the scouting department going to be set up? What are the networks that are there? They just hired Jorge Alvial, who was part of Atlanta United's scouting department at the very beginning. He's also worked with Chelsea and Manchester United scouting North America. You would figure he's got a database, and you would figure he's got a list of guys that would be a good fit here. We'll see. Cincinnati doesn't have to sign designated players, I think, to be competitive in year one, but they've got to make the most of that TAM. I think that's the make or break for me when it comes to Cincinnati, and honestly, when it comes to most teams in this league. If you use your TAM effectively, you're going to be a good team. If you don't, you're wasting a huge opportunity. And I would say that the teams that are the most successful in MLS, it's not always about spending on transfer fees or spending on salary like we've seen Atlanta and Toronto do. It's how they use TAM. Victor Vasquez put Toronto over the top last year. The TAM players that Atlanta United has signed have put them over the top. That's the important thing here. So Cincinnati, don't freak out about, they're not going to sign designated players until next year sometime. They don't have to if they use their TAM effectively. I think they're going to be competitive. I don't know if they're a playoff team year one because the East is going to be tight. And a lot of that's going to depend on what Montreal does, what Chicago does, what New England does, what Orlando does, what the teams that didn't make the playoffs do. Because I don't see anybody that looks like an obvious contender who made the playoffs in the East to fall apart. I don't think DC is going to get worse. I don't think Philadelphia is going to get worse. Columbus, you have questions because you'll have a coaching change there, it looks like. But I think you're going to have teams who are outside looking in get that much better. And for Cincinnati coming in, it won't be easy in year one. I think they can be far better than Minnesota. I don't expect them to set a record for the worst defense in league history. Let's put it that way. I think they will be an interesting team to watch and a team that can build a foundation for probably the next year to be that competitive. But the stakes just keep getting higher, and I think the quality keeps getting better in this league, John.
I think it's 7 for 6. I really do. And I think it's the same 7. I just think that the order is probably a little different.
Same 7. I don't think the teams that are on the outside looking in are content to be that. I don't think Montreal is going to sit and watch. Joey Saputo won't let that happen. I don't think Chicago is going to sit and watch. I think they have to do something. They have to make some moves. Now, are they the right moves is a different question. I think New England will do something to try to build upon that core.
But is it the right something?
Well, yeah, that's the part we don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say that they're not going to do the right something because they might sign the guy that is the right player. They might completely miss. Montreal could put a lot of money into it and completely miss. Do you expect Toronto to sit back and be like, no, we're good. We're fine. No, I think you're going to have more than 7 competing for 6 spots, that's for sure. I think the Eastern Conference is by far deeper than the West. And
no doubt.
You throw a Cincinnati into the mix, it's going to be a lot more than 7 teams fighting for 6 spots.
And, I mean, your point about Saputo is well taken. And I want to see what Toronto does in the offseason. I want to see who stays. I want to see what they do about Giovinco with the 1 year left on his contract. And we know that the discussions have been less than fruitful, and Giovinco is frustrated. What do you do about Altidore? And what do you do to replace those pieces if they both go? And who else do you bring in?
Spend money. You're going to spend money.
Well, yeah.
But that's what I'm saying, and this is where I think we get ourselves stuck a lot of times. Look, I don't expect Toronto to say, oh, well, Giovinco wants to leave. Okay, we'll let him leave. Oh, Josie wants to leave. Okay, we'll let him leave. No, we're just not going to spend that money now. We're just going to be mediocre. Now, do they make the right decisions? We don't know.
Right.
That's the part that you can't know until it's done, and even sometimes you can't know until you watch Claude Dielna do nothing, or you watch Michael Ciani do nothing. Sometimes you don't know until you actually see it. But I don't expect Chicago, Toronto, Montreal to sit back and do nothing. I don't expect New England to sit back and do nothing. I don't think they're going to do as much, but if you make the one big signing, you never know. That could be enough. Who could slip, out of the East? I don't expect the same 6 to make the playoffs.
NYCFC?
Barely happened. They could. They could also let David Villa go play in Qatar or wherever if he wants to play one more year, and they could put that money into a big player. That could happen too. They could go hire a big manager if they're not happy with Dome Tarrant. That could change it too. Dome Tarrant, with a full preseason to work with, could get that team playing the way he wants. So I wouldn't say they're likely to slip because I think they have farther to fall. I think DC gets better over a full year. I think Philadelphia gets better with more experience.
Agreed.
Columbus is the one to me that has the biggest risk of slipping because of Berhalter leaving. And that's the only thing we know so far is, we don't even know that, but it seems all but apparent. I'm expecting
the worst kept almost secret.
You would think. I mean, I'm expecting Greg Berhalter's music to hit at any point now, and then he will walk through and grab that U.S. men's national team jacket and put it on, and we'll be good to go. Western Conference is a whole different conversation. We can talk about that in the next segment, and we'll get into the Tuesday thoughts on the Twitters as well. Hang out with us. We'll be right back after this.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket, you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, November 13th edition, Tuesday Thoughts. Thanks again to our new sponsor, EnclosedLingerie.com. You can get $35 off your multi-month gift by going to EnclosedLingerie.com using the code down here at checkout. It's an awesome service that has a 100% size guarantee. It's much better than your flower of the month, beer of the month type of deal if you're looking for a special holiday gift for that special
Those
woman in
die
your life.
and go bad.
They do. They do. These don't. EnclosedLingerie.com. All right. Western Conference. So we've talked Eastern Conference, what it looks like for next year. Western Conference. I'm totally with Joe Patrick on the Seattle Sounders falling apart and having issues next year. I think they're old. I think Schmetzer has been able to ride a talented roster as far as he can. Can he work with a different roster? Can he build something from scratch? I'm not so sure. Jordan Morris coming back helps, but is that enough? I don't see it. I could see them missing the playoffs next year.
Yeah, I'm looking at Sporting maintaining. You know, LAFC is going to want to invest. FC Dallas, Portland, Real, to me, if they add another piece, they're still right there as a part of the mix. I think the Galaxy, depending on what they do in the offseason, and if they agree to Zlatan's demands about support and actually figuring out what they want to do with their lineup. Vancouver, Houston, hope.
Vancouver, it's a new manager. That could look completely different in 2019.
Right. Houston, you wonder what has happened there.
I'll tell you exactly what's happened there. No, that's easy. Juan David Cabezas getting hurt in the middle of the season, and you didn't have a number 6. You didn't have another one. Period. You didn't have the depth. It's that simple. If Cabezas doesn't get hurt in game 1 against Atlanta, and he's there all season, Houston's in the playoffs. He was there the year before. They were Western Conference finalists. He's hurt most of the season. They win the Open Cup. They don't make the playoffs. It's that simple. They don't have a lot of depth. That's the problem with a team like Houston is.
And that's what I was looking at. The depth thing.
But that's a spending thing. That's a different conversation. You know, their starting 11 is good. Their 1 to 14 is good. It's playoff quality. Past that, they don't have as much money as the rest. They don't. So if you lose a player in the wrong spot, you're in trouble. Toronto had the crazy situation where you had good depth, but you had 4 injuries at center back, and you're screwed. You have no way to get around that.
And just better road form from Houston. Goodness gracious.
That's been their now. That's the consistent issue. Is Houston on the road has never been able to figure it out.
I mean, 2-10-5 last year.
It was about the same the year before. That's the thing they got to figure out.
And then Minnesota, Colorado, San Jose. Yeah, okay. Side note before we go any further, I cannot wait, and I'm anticipating the day that we actually have the video component of the show available for everybody, just because of the discussions that we have in the break.
It's a frightening concept.
It'd be awesome. But no, I just, I definitely agree with the thought that Seattle could be the one that drops.
Well, we haven't gotten to Minnesota, Colorado, San Jose out west. San Jose will be better.
Yes.
Right, Jared?
Yep. They're going to unquake my heart, y'all.
He's a man of few words, folks. That's Jared Smith. San Jose.
I mean, what else is there to say about San Jose? Can San Jose be worse? In theory, yeah.
In theory.
I mean,
but they beat FCD twice.
It would take a Herculean effort to be worse.
The next teams in terms of number of wins won twice as much as San Jose in 2018. Mm-hmm. That's bad. Colorado, I don't expect anything to change there if they keep rolling with what they're rolling with. Minnesota should be better. Minnesota was 10-6-1 at home. That's really good. They were 1-14-2 on the road. That's really bad. But hey, John, Real Salt Lake was 3-11-13 on the road, and they made the playoffs. Portland was 4-8-5 on the road, and they're in the Western Conference Final. Columbus was 3-9-5, and they made the Eastern Conference semifinals. DC was 1-9-7 on the road. It can happen. You have to be better than 10-6-1 at home. I mean, you have to take some of that 6 and throw it into some draws and throw it into some wins. But it can happen. You will be limited. I don't think you're getting into an MLS Cup with being that bad on the road. But it can happen. Home form is the one you have to control first. And for Houston, I mean, let's look back. 2-10-5, there's teams that did as bad or worse on the road. 8-6-3 at home is not good enough. That's the bigger problem here. I don't think Minnesota is a playoff team in 2019. I don't think Colorado is a playoff team. I don't think they're contending for it. San Jose could contend. I think they probably need another year. Houston should be back if everybody's healthy. Vancouver, I think they'll be hanging around. I want to see what Mark Dos Santos does to change that team, because there were a lot of guys who liked Carl Robinson and wanted him to stay. We've seen some of the reactions. What happens now? How much turnover is there on the roster? I think Dos Santos is a better manager, but is he going to have to start from scratch with a lot of guys changing over with that team? And then there's the LA Galaxy. Zlatan, manager, Dos Santos brothers.
Dos Santos.
What happens with them? I don't know. It could go very good. It could go very bad. I think the Galaxy could go either way. I don't think they'll be 6-7. I think they will be either top 4 or they will be bottom 4. I think it's going to go either really north or really south for them. I just don't think they're going to hum along at this. I think they're going to go for broke, and it's either going to work or it's going to fail miserably. My bet is probably on failing miserably, because I think they need to make bigger changes in the front office than what they've made so far. And I don't know if they're going to do it. We'll see who they hire at manager. They're not the premier job that's available right now. That's going to hurt them. We'll see what they do with Zlatan. Are they going to give him more money and more years? I don't think they should. I think they might feel like they have to. And can you get out from under Giovanni Dos Santos' contract? And if you do, what does that do with Jonathan Dos Santos? Because you'd like to keep him. You might not be able to. That's a lot of stuff at StubHub Center to deal with. So, We'll see. Jarrett, what is your biggest question going into 2019 in MLS?
You broke up. What was that?
What is your biggest question going into 2019 in Major League Soccer? On the field stuff.
For me, I think it might be Orlando. Like, what does Orlando do? This is a team that we thought was going to make the playoffs in 2018. Instead, they had arguably the worst season in history. What do they do? What do they do going forward? We joked about the story about a midfielder getting his contract, his option exercised by accident by playing 1-2. Whoops. But what does that team look like? What's the composition of it? A lot of the guys you brought in were kind of in their prime / at the apex, working closer to the back end of their prime to the front end. What does that franchise look like going forward? Because every year it's gotten a little bit worse. And, at some point, theoretically, things have to not even turn around, but stabilize.
John, what's your biggest question on the field going into 2019?
Wow. I mean, I have so many because there are so many teams that you want to see how they continue to either improve or degrade. But I'll go with Toronto. I want to see what they do with all of these largely salaried players and what they do in response as to whether or not they're going to hang on to them for another year or two, or if they're going to let them go and who they bring in. I want to see what Toronto does after being at the top for so long and then going to a championship game and losing out and then having to try to recover a season that they didn't recover.
Mine's NYC. I don't know if Dome Tarrant's back, and if he's not, then you're starting from scratch at the manager. It doesn't sound like David Villa is going to be back. The team doesn't want to bring him back on the field for another year. That's your most important player in the attacking perspective. Is there trickle down on other guys that might not be back? Yangel Herrera is likely going to be at Manchester City going forward. He was on a 2-year loan with NYC, and that's up now. I would think he'd be in the mix for Manchester City, or they'd want to at least get him to Europe and get him in a different situation to see what else he needs in his game. If you lose Tarrant, Villa, Herrera, just that, those are big, big, big things to replace. Anything
that
else?
Doesn't get into the idea that I think Ring has talked in the past about possibly going back to Europe.
Ring has talked about it. I mean, you look at a guy like Callens, I could see him moving on. He's played very, very well for this team. Morales, does he stick around and want to rebuild? He looked very frustrated on Sunday at the Benz. NYC is one, along with Seattle, that feels like you could see a slip. Now, I think both of those clubs are clubs with resources that can spend to try to mitigate it. But NYC might be trying to bring a new manager in or still trying to figure out if Tarrant is the guy. And Seattle with Schmetzer, I'm with Joe. I kind of feel like there should be questions about if he is the right guy going forward. I don't know if those get ignored because of his results, but both of those two are two big clubs that could be in for bad years in 2019. And a lot of the decisions they make in the offseason are going to answer that. Are they going to be back where they are right now going in 2019? I wouldn't bet on both of them being back. I wouldn't. I don't know. I'd probably say Seattle is more at risk. But if NYC loses Villa and Herrera and they make a managerial change, we'll see. We'll see. The league keeps getting better and keeps getting more competitive, and that's a good thing. And these two clubs who are very big are going to be pushed, and they're going to have to keep up because David Beckham's Miami is just around the corner if you're in the Eastern Conference. LAFC is going to be into year 2, and they know what they need to fix in the Western Conference. It's not going to be easy for both of these two to keep their spots. We're going to take our final break. We'll come back. Tuesday thoughts on the Twitters after this. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Final segment, Soccer Down Here, November 13th edition of the show, Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show. We'll get to those now on the Twitters. ATL UTDE _aficionado ask, what players are at risk of not playing in the second leg due to the draconian yellow card rule? Yellow card accumulation, you get 2 in the postseason, you miss the next game. Now, that resets for MLS Cup. So if you get through the first leg of the conference final, you won't be suspended due to yellow card accumulation in MLS Cup. If you get a red card in the second leg, you're missing MLS Cup. Who is at risk on a yellow? Tito? Joseph? Remedi? Who picked them up this match? Those were the 3 from leg 1.
Escobar?
Did LGP pick
Escobar, and I think LGP.
Or Gressel? One of them, I think.
I will confirm in a second. I don't think it was Gressel. Pretty sure it was Escobar. And Escobar and Miles Robinson are your yellow cards.
Yes. Remembered Miles when you said Miles.
Yeah, 61st minute for Miles, Escobar 41st minute.
Unsporting behavior.
Yes, unsporting behavior for those 2. Remedi, Villalba, Martinez have one from leg 1. So if those guys avoid a yellow in the first leg, they're good to go for MLS Cup if we get there. If they get a yellow in the first leg at home against the Red Bulls, they will miss the second leg of the Eastern Conference Finals. What else do we have on the Twitters, John?
All right. First off, props to Sherbs for busting out the panda gif.
Hey. That's gimmick infringement.
If we don't have Capo stand, we riot. Then the panda gif of him smashing the keyboard. So I thought that was worthy of a mention. Clayton Poss at East Football 50. My hashtag Tuesday thoughts is with the discussion of outside MLS fans thinking Atlanta United does not have a solid fan base. They need to look outside the stadium at the Gulch on match day, and they will find what they're looking for, crazy rowdy Atlanta United fans.
I will say that soccer people outside of Atlanta need to look outside of their soccer bubble and understand that what Atlanta has created is something that can be created in other markets if you will do that. It is a mix of hardcore soccer fans, of brand new soccer fans, of young, of old, of white, black, Hispanic, international, Asian. I mean, every single possible walk of life is there in the Gulch and in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Male, female, all the way across the board. If you have watched the Atlanta Chiefs, if you have watched MLS from day one, if you've watched the Premier League or your whole life, if you grew up watching the Argentine Primera División, if you're a Serie A fan, it's all there. And it's all welcome. That's the difference. If you're a new fan, I don't think you feel as intimidated joining in Atlanta than as you do in other markets. I completely don't think that's the case. I think in other markets, there's a bit of a, well, if you're not as big of a fan as me, then, yeah, you're going to have to go over there. You're going to have to sit at another table. And that needs to stop. I think that's the secret sauce here in Atlanta. I really do. I think that's a big part of it, and that's why you have 70,000 instead of 20. So it's special, and I hope it gets recognized as such. There's always going to be, because it happened when Seattle came in and they drew big crowds, there's always a bit of that jealousy, and that's understandable. But some of the anti-Atlanta stuff has been really strange to me, and it should stop, because this should be a blueprint. This should not be the outlier that it is right now. This should be a model going forward that more clubs and more cities adopt. And I hope they do, rather than look at it and say, well, we can't do that, or, oh, yeah, it's a new car smell and it's going to go away in a couple of years. Just actually look at it and learn from it and take it to your market and make it your own in your market for what works for you. And do it.
Also on the board, Shai Sato. Yeah, go ahead, Jared.
What always kills me about that whole thing of, it's going to go away. This 70,000 people is good for the sport in this country. What's the benefit of having something blow up and then go the hell away? How does that benefit? I get it if you're an anti-Atlanta fan, like if you're a fan of another town and you don't like Atlanta, that's fine. I get that, but to sit there and keep, waxing about it eventually falling off and failing, how does that benefit the sport that you love, even in your city and in the league that you enjoy watching? There's no benefit to that. It's just forced level of schadenfreude and cutting off your nose to spite your face.
You got to have a league to play in, folks. You got to have opponents and rivals to play. That's a good thing. And talk all the smack in a rivalry week and all that. Completely cool. Do it. That's a good thing. But it gets to another level sometimes, and, it's just silly. Whether it's Atlanta is too corporate, which is one that I've seen here lately, which makes me laugh. The fan base is too corporate, which, okay, you have not experienced it, so you would be so far from the truth. Atlanta is what soccer should be in this country. Stop trashing it and actually look at it and say, wow, how could I do that in Nashville and Cincinnati and Miami and wherever else the league moves into? And if you're a market that is failing, look at what Atlanta's doing right and say, well, we can replicate that part of it, or we can take that and twist it to what works in our community. Atlanta United feels inclusive. The name was seen as generic by a lot of folks, but it truly feels like the club lives up to that name of United. It does. And that's why it's different here than it's ever been with any other team in town, and that's why it's different here than most other cities in the league. It feels inclusive and it feels welcoming to all, and that needs to continue. I don't think that's ever going to change here, but that needs to continue to grow across the league.
You want to start stoppage time with some developing story / breaking news?
Sure. We will go, since I don't know what it is, we're going to go air horn.
Okay.
Okay.
Your gentlemen with whistles and flags have been assigned for the 2 legs of the Eastern Conference Final.
Oh, okay. This does get breaking news. Okay, we have assignments for leg 1.
We have assignments. Yep.
He was the person we saw in the center for leg 1 of the Eastern Conference semifinals, Kevin Stott. Drew Fisher is your VAR. Alan Chapman is your 4th. Corey Parker, Alan Winkowski are the ARs. Leg 2 at Red Bull Arena. VAR, Chris Penso. 4th, Ismail Elfath. Frank Anderson, Brian Poschel are your ARs. And Jair Marufo is your center referee for leg 2. I'm okay. I'm okay with it.
I can live with it. No Baldomero Toledo, I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Penso's had some moments on VAR in that second leg. That concerns me a little bit. But Marufo on one of them is as good as you can get. Stott, again, I just had the issue with the inconsistency of how he threw cards in the first leg at Yankee Stadium. And you've got guys on yellow card tight ropes. So we'll see how he handles the cards in leg 1 at Mercedes-Benz.
Do we know who the assistant VAR is?
We don't. Not assigned yet,
Mr.
or at least not announced.
Snuffleupagus and Mr. Looper.
Don't know who it is, so we'll see. But there you go. There's your assignments.
Shai
Dun,
Sato.
dun, dun.
Exactly. At Moki Baby Chai. It bugs me that everyone wants to hate Atlanta United for our growth of the sport and how we're one of the best in the league, when at the same time they want to bitch about soccer not being taken more serious in national sports media here. Hashtag Tuesday Thoughts.
Can't have it both ways, folks. You cannot have it both ways. It doesn't become bigger in national media without stories like Atlanta. It doesn't. If you're drawing 20,000 a game or less in New York City, where is most of the national sports media based? I believe it would be New York City. And why would they be taking it as seriously when that's what's happening there? Atlanta is changing the narrative for the league. That's a good thing. You can talk trash about Atlanta United as a team and on the field and want to see them lose. All that's great, but the off-the-field side of it is one of the biggest success stories in sports, period. And that needs to be respected. And that's where it gets a little frustrating at times when people just don't understand the power that Atlanta United brings to the league. So we'll see. Maybe one day. But Cincinnati's not going to draw like Atlanta United because they can't. Nashville won't draw like Atlanta United because they can't. Miami won't draw like Atlanta United because they can't unless they play at Hard Rock Stadium and draw like that, but I think that's not very likely. So this is how it's going to be for a little while. It's not changing anytime soon, y'all. Gwen agrees. She gets fired up about it, too.
Sherbs, his Tuesday Thoughts, Reed Geiger. He did us a favor not giving a red, won handily anyways, and would have changed the conversation to, was it a red? And DAE Atlanta gets all the calls.
Did we get lucky that Geiger did not influence the match, Jarrett, and we didn't have to hear about, well, NYC got Geigered. That's why Atlanta moved on.
Yeah, so I went and watched the match back yesterday. I'm still trying to figure out how Herrera didn't get a red. From behind, studs up into the leg, didn't get the ball. And I get it. Like, we had talked about this in the lead up to the match. Geiger was going to try and make sure that match ended 11v11. He was going to bend it a little bit, and he did. But, I mean, that's been called before. So
that was a nasty challenge.
It wasn't for lack of challenges. I think it was Geiger trying to keep everyone on the field, everyone in one piece. And I wonder about that in situations like that where he makes that call, and I wonder if his thought process is, this is a yellow, I'm going to put my foot down on it, because if it's a red and if he's worried about that setting things off as much as, if not more than missing a red would set things off.
It was midway through the first half? If that same play had happened in the 65th minute, I think it's a red.
That was the play Miguel scored on, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, it was midway through the first. It was
so 41st minute.
41st, a little bit later in the first, but it was early in the game. I get it if you're Geiger at that point and you're managing the match. You don't want to go red in the first half in the second leg of a playoff match.
Then Lewis Martin, Tuesday thoughts. 1 million plus in attendance for MLS in Atlanta makes me proud, makes me hopeful. MLS in Atlanta has roots, helps the club have the money to invest in more players, scouts, and international academy players.
Yeah, the roots are there, and that's why you have that crowd. I mean, the roots were there, and what Atlanta United was able to do, which no one else had done, was actually develop those roots into something special, and then build upon it and plant more seeds. And that's the big change. I mean, you've drawn 1 million in year 2, and you didn't open the stadium up every game. You're going to open it up for more games next year. You have had 2 years rather than a generation of kids growing up with Atlanta United, where that's what they know growing up, and they know how big Atlanta United is. They know how big professional soccer is in the city. You get 15 years down the road, it's a completely different conversation. So the roots are there in the short term. The roots in the long term are being built. Atlanta will push the league forward to do more of those things, more homegrown players being developed, more international young players coming through and being developed. And I think getting to that point that Darren Eales has talked about, that it's not a simple, easy decision that a player comes here and says, well, I want to be in Atlanta for a couple years and develop and then move on to Europe. You're going to get to a point where people say, I'm going to come to Atlanta because I want to be part of this club, and if I spend the rest of my career there, I'm going to be happy. And that's not that far off on the horizon, in my opinion.
And we have other folks who in the timeline have been discussing what's been going on with Ticketmaster and pre-tickets and national media. But other than that, we're pretty much caught up.
Yeah, I hope MLS learns from the ticketing stuff. I've seen some people say they got their tickets. I've seen some people say they got tickets in the same area. Hopefully it's not as big of a deal as it could have been or as was feared, and it works out. So it does have to get better. If it's a home game for the higher seed, I think they need to have more of a say in how their season ticket holders are accommodated. I think that's something the league should learn from this whole situation, because it is bigger than they've ever had to deal with before. But because the stadium's bigger, they should have more ways to work with it, and hopefully they do. We'll see what happens. But if MLS Cup is at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 8th, it will be a full house, and it will be an insane atmosphere across the board. But there are 2 games to get there. Eastern Conference Finals. We got a little bit more time, folks, before we even get to that point. We'll talk about the guys who are away on international duty for both teams, because the Red Bulls have quite a few as well. We'll look at the international schedule tomorrow. We'll get into all of the Wall Pass Wednesday questions from you guys. You can go ahead and start sending them in. Use that hashtag Wall Pass Wednesday at Soccer Down Here. We'll answer any questions you have, and we'll start looking ahead. Conference finals. We'll also take a look at some of the teams who missed out, like we did with New England too. We'll look at what a Chicago has to do, what a Seattle has to do. We'll dig a little bit deeper on different teams as we get closer to the offseason and all of the chaos of a silly season. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We really appreciate it. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha playoffs, y'all.